Hey folks, Eshin Lacoste here at All Wise Transformation with another segment of mental health, spiritual practice, and self-care. But we've been focusing with Juno, with his their help, in talking about particular modules in distress intolerant. And we're continuing the conversation with module two, accepting distress and looking at ways to manage tools, mental health exercises you could do, or imaginary exercises you could do. Gino,
Visualization.
thank you. That was the word I was looking for. Um, Gino, how are you?
I am so fantastic. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm present and accounted for today. It's. I don't know if you've been outside, but it's nice and warm. I'm
So the
I'm
past
excited.
couple days down by me have been lovely, but today specifically, it's like gray.
Yeah, no, the sun's out. I'm gonna say it's about like 62 right now.
That's lovely.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah.
Um, what's it called? I have so much. So I did the questions this time,
Yay.
which I'm so excited for. And then I also have a poem to share and something to announce. So I'm gonna ask you, what order would you like to do this in?
Poem, and then announcement, and then question.
Perf. Okay. So this is another poem from the forthcoming book, Make Me Gape. And this poem is called The Witch's Mark.
Mm.
Um, and it's for me, I'm gonna just give you context of what made me write it. So, spirituality has been a theme through my life forever, and I've always felt at home in the space of being a witch, which if that's apparent to many people here by now, but this could be your first time, so if it is welcome. And this poem was kind of loosely about my journey in that space, moving or transitioning from like a Roman Catholic upbringing to embracing my witchness.
Mm. Mm.
They cast you out, called you cursed, feared the magic, your right by birth. They tried to silence, tried to bind, but magic wakes in those aligned. The wind will sing, the embers glow, the tides will carve, the spirits flow. The earth will turn to meet your stride. The path is yours. Step forth in pride. From marrow deep, from beneath and from breath and bone, it rises fierce to find its own. No chain can hold, no fear can stay. The spark ignites, shadows give way. Water knows and earth proclaims. Flame ignites, the sky reclaims. Winds will rise, the stars ordain. Step forth, stand tall, the mark remains. No force can bind, no storm can claim, no man can break this bond arcane. You are not lost, you are not weak, you are the fire that time must keep. So take your place, the time is here, no more silence, no more fear. The world will shift, the veil will part, rise unbound, make your mark.
Mm. Love that.
I enjoyed that too.
Yeah,
Except for my little bit of a stumble in the middle, but that's okay.
it's very sort of like um that new journey, that new process, that starting that new chapter, and sort of like the excitement of just getting started in a new version, or a metamorphosis version of yourself. I love that.
I think for me, it was really inspired by the fact that I feel like so many people kind of take spirituality for granted in a way because it's just whatever their parents' belief structure is given to them. And frequently, or historically, at least for many people I know, that wasn't really questioned. It was just like, okay, I got it. I'll do it. And sometimes the people that are given that, it doesn't work for,
Mhm.
whether because the the organization that you belong to thinks you're going to hell just for existing, or because there's just something inside you that doesn't feel right about it. And I feel like so many people are so trained or um, like they're just steeped in the tradition of whatever culture they come from. And sometimes they don't think outside of what that looks like. And
Mm,
this is an invitation to do that.
yeah, no, it's an invitation accepted.
Mm. We love it. So announcement time.
Yay!
I'm working on a super exciting project. Working with you has been so fun, and I'm looking forward to continuing doing that, obviously. But I also decided to start my own podcast, and it's called The Hysterical Homosexual. And it's going to be airing April 1st, is going to be when the first one is released, and it'll be on all the platforms. Um, Advise, Mercury retrograde is still happening then. So the first one is intended to post on the first, but who knows what the gods have planned. But to give you an idea of the general vibe, I'm going to read you the first episode's title,
Yeah.
which is From Twink Supremacy to Body Liberation: How Capitalism Warped Queer Desire. So
Yes, please.
that'll that'll give you a little bit of what we're talking about.
Yes. A bit of intensity, a bit of fun, but yes, focused.
Yeah, and fully like I'm asking people to think, and I'm asking people to think outside of the structures that they were taught. Because I think many people in our world today are too happy to accept what they've been given without questioning it. And I think that if people questioned some of the beliefs they were given, they probably wouldn't actually feel them because they'd find out that the voice that was telling it to them is not their actual inner voice. It's the narrative of someone else.
Yeah.
And so this whole podcast is a is again an invitation. It's an invitation to explore sides of yourself that maybe you didn't know were a thing. And I called it the hysterical homosexual because I'm funny, I'm gay, and sometimes I spiral. So that's kind of the premise of it all. And I'm excited because you'll be able to find that on a shirt soon. So
I can't wait. Aw, that's exciting. Aw,
yeah,
good
I'm
for
very, very
you.
excited for it.
Is it gonna be audio? Is it gonna be podcasts are gonna be available for folks on both platforms?
It's definitely going to be audio. It may also be video.
Okay.
So I'm super excited for that. And um oh, also, this is a perfect example of how Mercury retrograde happens sometimes. So Mercury is the Roman version of the Greek god Hermes. And Hermes,
The ones with the wings on their legs.
yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. The wings on their shoes, absolutely. And so um Hermes slash Mercury presides over things like technology, communication, um, commerce, all this stuff. So when Mercury goes retrograde, what a retrograde means is it's the planet is in shadow, so we can't see it for the time being. So when that happens and we're not receiving energy from Mercury, those things kind of can go haywire. And it did. So while I was writing these 16 episodes, because I pre-scripted them, I'm, I wouldn't say I'm type A, but I'm very prepared. I don't like to be caught with my skirt down unless it's an invitation, but that's a different conversation. So, um, it's true. Um, so I wrote 16 episodes and then I went to revise them and to like proof them and tighten up the narrative and stuff. And when I went back, 8 of them were gone, just not there anymore. And I was like, what happened to this? Like, what happened? And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna release it and I'll rewrite them. I wrote them once, I can write them again. And I was like, but I'm not gonna do it until later tonight. So then last night, after breath work, I signed back on and I was like, okay, I'm gonna write them again. And I sat down and all of them were back.
Oh.
So I was like, okay.
Okay.
So I so I backed them up in a different location, and now I have them both places,
Just in case. Because
just in case. Yeah.
because you never know when all those crazy energies are going to be like, oop, let's flip this around.
Ex- Exactly. So that is an example of how Mercury retrograde can affect people sometimes. So if
Ooh.
you're having a weird thing with your email until like the 7th of April or like a week or so after that, that's why. Are you ready for questions now?
Okay, I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready. Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay. Um, so question one is, if you had to explain queerness to aliens using only a song, a movie, and a piece of art, what are you choosing?
Oh, let's see. If I had to explain queerness to aliens, a song would probably be one of Lady Gaga's. I think I would choose one of Lady Gaga's songs. Um, I can't think of any right now. And then a movie would be Paris is Burning. I really
You may
like.
have just taken my answer, but that's okay. I have a backup.
I really love that movie. Can I say when I first found that movie, I was like, "What? There's there's gay culture? That's a thing?" So
Very much a thing.
it really flipped my because I grew up in a really conservative, Protestant household, very Christian, gone to church every Sunday, and it maybe rumors of queerness and in a very negative term. And then when I found Paris is Burning, I was like, oh, okay, that's
You're like, if you shoot an arrow and it goes real high, hooray for you. And what would your piece of art be?
um piece of art would probably be I can't think Pascal. He's like a gay Haitian artist. Lived in the 80s. He
Oh,
I think
I know who you're talking about, but I forget his name.
It's Pascal something. I want to say it's I can't think of it right now, but I would show some of his artwork.
I love that.
Yeah.
For me, my song would be um, Believe by Cher,
Ooh.
because I think that would open them to a whole category of gay music. And also, I think that Cher's Believe, when that song came out, there wasn't really another sound super like it. And I think that Cher reinvented uh, the way we hear certain sounds, and I like love that. And if I was gonna show aliens a queer song or a song that I associated with queerness, like Believe is such a joy-filled song, and also um like Cher's an icon that I really appreciate. And like I love who she is, or I love who I think she is because I don't actually know her yet. Um the uh the movie I was really leaning towards Paris is Burning. However, I will shift to like maybe Rent.
Okay.
And even though Rent, the movie, is not my preferred version of it, I definitely prefer the stage musical. Um, Actually, no, 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 no. If I'm gonna do a musical that's gay, I'm gonna do Wicked, because there's
Ooh.
also a political component to Wicked.
Yeah.
Not that there's not a political component to Rent, but I think Wicked is much more of the times right now. So I would show them the movie musical version of Wicked because I also believe that Wicked is better than the stage musical. And I saw the stage musical twice with the original cast, so I can say that with no shame.
I
Um,
I haven't seen either Rent or Wicked, so
ah, so you really don't know what you're missing. They're so good. Um, I mean, I wrote a thesis on Rent, so I could talk too much about it. And then an art piece I would choose would be something by Keith Haring, like those like kind of outlines of people,
Mhm.
because I think that those art pieces capture kind of the fact that we're all different but all the same. And also, it was
Mm.
birthed out of a time where like the AIDS crisis was happening, which was like a really pivotal point for us as people, as like queer people. It was like one of the big things where like community really came together outside of Stonewall, of course. But
Yeah.
like we community has always led to our triumph. So I'm excited for more of that. And that's why I would show those three things.
Yeah. Wait, so did
Um,
you actually write a whole thesis, like a real thesis on Rent? Is that a
yeah, I compared it to Puccini's La Boheme, which was the original source material that it was based on,
uh,
and then I did a character comparison in it, and I talked about how certain plot points and certain characters. When I did the character analysis, I talked about how certain characters even have the same names in like to different respects. And it was in like freshman or sophomore year of college, something like that.
ooh.
Many moons ago. So are you ready for question two?
Okay, question two, go for it.
If your gender identity had a theme song, what would it be and why?
Uh, Gender identity had a theme song. Um, I want to break free by Queen. I want to break
Oh my
free.
God, that's such a good
I want
answer.
to be
That's so good.
free.
Um,
What about you?
Still like the default queer setting in me wants to say I'm Every Woman by Whitney. Like just because I love that song and
Yeah, yeah.
it's so good. But realistically, that's not probably the most appropriate representation of how I view my gender. Um, ah, it would be In Vogue, Free Your Mind.
Ooh, that's a good one. That is a good one.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
I
a good.
live.
I like that one. Oh, those are good.
Right?
Oh man. Thanks, Juno. Those were good
Yeah,
questions.
my pleasure.
All right, folks. So we're going to continue our conversation in regards to distress intolerance. And so, past couple episodes, we've been talking about what is distress intolerant, the paradox of distress intolerant, and the belief that folks have around emotions, facing your emotions, being able to accept your emotions. We've had conversations about ways to perceive emotions, looking at it from a different lens and looking at it from a different angle. And we're starting to really look at tools to use. And I think in our last segment, we talked about using sort of like the imaginary aspect of the train coming in with, like you're standing on the platform at a train station and the train's coming in with all the emotions, let that sort of pass, or the clouds or the ocean, using a different lens to distance yourself from intense emotions. Juno, do you have any sort of feedback or advice on particular techniques that folks could use in regards to mindfulness, or what mindfulness could look like for them? Because in the module, they have a script that folks could use. It's sort of like a meditative script. But I'm curious, do you have anything, or what do you got? So last night Juno did an awesome breath work, and some stuff that I thought I worked through came leering its head last night. And so thanks for that, Juno. I got some more work I gotta do. So
Well, I'm glad that your body chose to release that because that is in the process of like moving into emotional freedom. So I'm glad that that happened. Um, and that's why we have that chat group on WhatsApp too, so that people can process their things if they need.
Oh, I
And they
forgot. I
wanted,
forgot. I forgot about to put that in the chat. Anyway, go ahead.
oh, that's totally okay. Um, So, yes, I do have a mindful technique, a mindfulness technique, I should say. And it does involve breathing because that is, in my opinion, one of the easiest ways to get into your body and regulate the nervous system, which is really like what distress intolerance is. It's a dysregulation in the nervous system. Um, so if in a very base way, before I even cover the breathing technique, you could actually just like you can go like and hold it for a long time, and that will stimulate the vagus nerve, which is in your chest, and that will move you out of fight or flight and into rest and digest, which is like key when you're panicking or like frustrated or feeling feelings that you don't like to help move you through that. Stimulating the vagus nerve will move you into rest and digest and out of anxiety. So it will be easier to become that observer.
Mhm.
So you can do it through something like oming, or you can regulate with something that I use all the time, which is box breathing. And box breathing is um, a 5 second inhale, a hold for 5 seconds, a 5 second exhale, and a hold for 5 seconds.
Mhm.
So it's really simple to do. And then if you want to combine that with like a mantra or something that you're feeling, then that can be really potent. And actually, let's see if I can pull up a mantra really quick.
Oh, nice. Oh, great.
Let's just see. I know I have one.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of the conversation has been about ways to accept the feelings, right? Because it's just so overwhelming, and it's okay if you can't, right? Like these are just tools that we could use, and Juno's sort of gonna sort of give us a quick one, but I also want to just give folks a heads up, right? Because there's also like mindfulness, breathing, like as Juno's gonna sort of talk about a little bit more. There's mindfulness walking, mindfulness eating, sort of mindfulness scanning your body, or journaling, whatever that sort of look like for folks. I personally like doing a gratitude list, listing things I feel grateful for, and things that I'm aware that I have privilege, um, various aspects of privilege that comes up for me as an educated person who has a job and has a career, right? So like there privilege comes with that. So I'm able to create a list, or not a list, but like one or two things each morning or each evening that I'm able to sort of identify. And then it's sort of like a mindfulness script, but we could talk about that a little bit later. What do you got, Juno?
So, by the way, I do gratitude every day at 1:30. My alarm goes off, and then I'm like, okay, what am I grateful for in this moment? So that is like also super helpful.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And I
but
think you've also posted some of those too, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's hard to be grateful in the moment when you're feeling not great feelings.
Yeah.
So that's where techniques like breathwork come in. And um, I'm going to do the inhale for 5, but I'm going to talk through it. So it's not going to be the same. So maybe you can do the full
Okay.
inhale for 5 and I'll
Okay.
count for you
All
while
right.
I say the mantra.
Yeah.
So we're going to breathe in through our nose for 5 seconds. So body is a site of joy. Hold for 5, 2, 5. Exhale, not a product to perfect. Hold for 5. Inhale. My body is a site of joy. Hold for 5. Not a product to perfect. Hold for 5. And you can do that like 3, 4 times in a row, working with like a mantra in your head while you're doing this breathing. And actually, what I would do is I would inhale, my body is a site of joy. Hold, not a product to perfect. Exhale, my body is a site of joy. Hold, not a product to perfect.
Mm.
And that would get me in the space of whatever, of like how I would want to perceive myself or how I would want to calm myself.
Right. And I think like for me, the conversation around these particular tools and these particular strategies to help you move through the distress or to help you work on accepting the distress or help you sort of view it from a different direction, get some distance from it. And I think, Juno was saying this in the sense of being able to practice, being able to be patient with yourself and persistent. Because I think, this work, as you said earlier, like sometimes when you're in the midst of your like intense emotions, you're not going to think about your breath. You're not going to think about using an imagery to help you think of your emotions moving on a train or floating on a cloud. You're distressed, and so the practice is either doing it earlier in the day or later in the evening or small stakes, right? Because sometimes I know some people getting cut off, when they're driving and someone cutting them off, that could be, a sense of urgency that, oh, why did they do that? And, that's a small stake of being able to practice. So there are things you could do on a daily basis to practice these particular skills. That when you are in a distress situation, it's not so intense, it's not so long, it's more bearable and more manageable, right? And so it's the practice, because I know you have practiced, that you do.
Yeah, I mean, I get up every morning around like 8 or 9, and then I do breath work, I do a meditation, I do some yoga, I pull a tarot card or two, and I do a reflection. And then around 10 o'clock, I join the world and I like interact with other people. Um, But I also have the luxury of working for myself. And so to talk about privilege, like I am privileged enough to be able to structure my day however I like. So I just want to acknowledge that that is a very real privilege. And I mean, it's the type of thing where also, if you're a person who you wake up at 5 or 6 in the morning to go to the gym, you can do breath work at the gym. You can
Hmm.
integrate it just part of your daily routine. It
Yeah,
doesn't need to be like this whole thing.
yeah.
I make it a whole thing because I'm extra, but that's
And
just me.
and we love that about you. And as for me, right? So as a person who does go to an office and does basically a 9 to 5, and so usually in the morning, and occasionally some mornings I'm better than others, where I'm able to sort of get up early, uh, give some offerings to my ancestors, do some yoga, and then like a brief sort of meditative breath work, not necessarily the way that Juno described, but just sort of sitting and just paying attention to my breathing. And that's it. And if my mind wanders, that's fine. I just sort of bring it back to my breath. And then I sort of start my day from there, taking a shower and making breakfast. Again, there are some mornings where I'm on it, and there are other mornings I'm not so on it. But I'm not harsh on myself for being not being on the ball on those particular days. Um,
I think an important part of mindfulness is also offering yourself grace.
mm,
And what I mean by that is that, yeah, we all want to do the right thing for ourselves all the time. And we want to be these, like, or at least I want to be this, like, enlightened being where, like, I can
yeah,
transcend reality and not deal with the stresses of everyday life. And I want to live in total world peace all the time. But, like, that's not always the most tangible version of our reality.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so when it's one of those really busy days and you get up or you wake up after your alarm or something like that,
yeah,
and then don't feel bad about not being able to do the thing. Like
right,
just be like holding the intention to do it and working towards making it a consistent part of your day is huge.
yeah,
You don't need
yeah,
to think because I can't do this every day, I shouldn't do it. Like just because the more you use like mindfulness skills and like conscious breathing techniques or meditation or whatever, um, it becomes more built into who you are. So then when you are experiencing distress intolerance, if you have a history of breathing to calm yourself or like a ritual breathing exercise that works for you, you can just pull from that in that moment.
Yeah.
instead of being like, what was that breathing technique that I heard about on that podcast? Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
just becomes more a part of who you are and how you communicate with the world around you.
Right. And I feel like with that, right, like when we're talking about the practice and the patience and the being present, right? Like I think those are like mundane things, right? Like for me, the walking mindfulness, or for me the eating mindfulness, right? Like those are just really mundane things. And so if you could bring your attention to just what you're doing, I feel like that's just half the battle, right? Just being aware of like I'm washing my hands, right? Like just being aware of the sensation of the soap and the warmness or the coolness of the water, or if you're walking, just being in your body and noticing just things around you. Or I specifically like doing mindfulness cooking because I love cooking, and so I'm really thinking about just being with the herbs or being, whatever I'm
So
cooking.
you're a kitchen witch.
I love it. There's just something about it. Sometimes I have a glass of wine, which sort of helps me be more in the moment. Um, but the mundane, right? I feel like that's the key part that folks forget. Like that's where the actual work is being present, being aware, being mindful of the moment. Because again, you're not going to be on the ball all the time because there are going to be things that come
Well,
up.
you know what? We've also been so conditioned to remain distracted.
Yeah.
Like, and we could go into like larger implications of why that serves other people in certain structures, but we're not going to do that. But
We
I
might
will
do that
say,
on your podcast.
yes, we will definitely do that on my podcast. Um, but like for example, washing your hands is a great example. Like in addition to feeling the soap and feeling the suds and being conscious of your body contact with itself, another great way to infuse that with like a little bit of spirituality or intention would be when you are washing your hands, think about something that you're letting go of and
Mm,
just watch it go down the drain and just
mm,
be free of it. So
mm.
even if maybe you're frustrated by your boss or something, and I know when I used to work in an office and I had a boss, I would go to the bathroom when I was feeling frustrated just to like give
Yeah,
myself three
yeah,
or 4 seconds to breathe away
yeah,
from it.
yeah.
And so I would wash my hands and I'd be like, I'm so done with this issue with, and I fill in my boss's name.
Mm,
And I would
mm.
just be like, I'm letting go of all of this because you need to wash your hands at the end of your bathroom visit anyway,
Yeah,
unless
yeah.
you're a little bit skivats, which that's your journey.
Oof,
Um,
oof.
and I would wash and I would let it go. And then when I would leave the bathroom, I would feel better.
Yeah,
So it sounds like a really simple thing,
yeah.
but we exist. Again, we're going to take it back to the Hermetic principles for a minute. It's all
No,
cognition. It's all our bodies looking for patterns. It's our brain searching for patterns and things to confirm our beliefs.
right.
So when you then combine a visualization or an action with a thought, your brain starts to go, oh, okay, like we'll work on that. We'll figure out how to make that make sense.
Mhm.
And that's how that works.
Yeah,
So highly encourage.
yeah, yeah. And I think the struggle is to believe that it's doing something. Uh, that we live in a very sort of like instant gratification that like I want it to work now, I want to feel better now, I want to be distracted, um be entertained. And so the work is the slowing down, because you're right, we have I have participated in the fast track society and have, you know, feed into sort of capitalism in that idea that like we need all these external things for the end result of perfectionism. And so you're going to be bored. Be bored in the moment. Acknowledge it. Be present with it. And not let it sort of make you feel that you have to get out of your own skin or run away from it. If you're putting on socks, or if you're, cleaning the same floor, like whatever it is, having the intention to just be present with that particular activity or act.
And I know that like when I infuse intention into my everyday acts, like the magic of the mundane, whatever you want to call it, like um it makes the boring tasks go quicker and easier.
Right.
So like when I'm cleaning my bathroom, which like I venture to say most people don't love to do. Um like that's when I think about like what am I like how can I use this energy of like cleaning? What am I cleansing out from me that I'm then flushing down the toilet? Like what am I wiping the sink down? Like you know what I mean? Like it's just little things like in me or like when I wipe down the mirror, like what am I shining up about myself? Like
Right.
what is this
Right.
reflection doing for me?
Right.
And I mean, I think that since I started doing that, well, not that I think I know since I started doing that, I've been much happier with myself and my existence. So,
Right, because that criticism has been removed, or there's a stopgap between the constant criticism or the rumination or the anxiety-inducing worry or the crippling depression, right? Like it's a stopgap in being able to utilize different coping mechanisms, right? Because I think it goes back to what you're saying in this idea of that if we're criticizing ourselves, that means that we're looking for a pattern to be able to fix, to be able to say, okay, I'm no longer imperfect, I'm perfect now, or I'm presentable, or I'm valued in some way, and that other people want to be with me, right? Because I feel a lot of the, for me at least, I think a lot of the struggle is how do I embrace loneliness, and as an individual who struggles with depression and sprinkles of anxiety, right? It's really being mindful that this gives me the opportunity to lean in further into that distressing or uncomfortable feeling. Because feelings, I think, as we've said, is not necessarily bad or good. It's just you pay attention.
yeah, we cover that in workbook one about like feelings are just feelings and they're there to tell you something
Yeah,
or they're there to bring your attention to a part of yourself.
yeah, yeah. And another tool that they provided in the workbook is on page 5, practicing acceptance, and they give you a mindfulness of emotion diary. And so this is like a diary, a daily diary that you could create to help you keep track of what's coming up for you, or how am I improving in my ability to be more present and mindful with my emotions. And so they do sort of like a days of the week, like Monday through Sunday. They give you a certain like a you would write down the time and duration and the experience that you're having. Is it the impression or perception that this is a positive or negative experience? But being able to track that, being able to track your emotions or being able to track your experience helps you see them in a different light, and that it sort of removes you a little bit from it from when you're actually in it. And I think that's a really good exercise, being able to objectively observe your emotions in a fashion.
It also gives you the ability to look back on them. So like
Yes.
once you've felt the feeling and you're no longer in the midst of it, you can look back and say like, why was I feeling that?
Yeah.
Which is key. I do something similar to this. It's not quite as detailed with like time and duration, but I do have a notes section in my phone where like if I'm feeling something, whether it's not whether it's positive or negative, usually it's the negative stuff that I write down because I want to examine it. But I do have a section for like if I became inspired, basically like inspiration and then like processing. And just having it that way is great because I always have my phone on me. I think we all always have our phones on us. And
Sometimes in the
so,
bathroom.
yeah, exactly. Everything's happening in the bathroom in this episode. I do need to clean my bathroom today once we're done with this, so that's probably why. Um, but you can just jot it down really quick. And then also that's part of the letting go because you're getting it literally out of yourself. You're putting it somewhere else
Yeah.
physically.
Yeah. And I want to iterate, and I think I've said this before, that you don't have to be perfect. And I think Junos have said this before. You don't have to be perfect at this, right? There's a level of being kind and compassionate with yourself, because life is hard. It is difficult. There's just no way around it. And the one thing that you're always guaranteed is that change is going to happen. You're going to get older, you're going to lose somebody, you're going to make new friends, you're going to lose friends, right? Like that's the one thing that you have no control over. And the practice of the mindfulness or the practice of being patient is getting some comfortability with being okay without being uncomfortable.
Yeah, being comfortable in the discomfort.
Yes, yeah, yeah,
And I think that also, like, most people, when they see someone else going through something, they're very generous with offering grace. They're
yeah.
very easy to be like, well, they're going through something, or maybe XYZ, or like, it's very easy for us to excuse the behavior of others. But then, especially people who are very sensitive or like in compassionate professions like social work or psychology or stuff like that, we almost have this weird way of like holding ourselves to a different standard of like, and I think a lot of people do it. I don't only think it's caring compassion, like comparing, I don't only think it's compassionate professions. I think it's just something that we do as humans where we're willing to make an excuse for another person, but not
Mm,
always for ourselves. And I think that when we're going through these things, the first thing we should do is offer ourselves grace and kindness and say, like,
mm,
you know what? I'm going through something right now. I just need a minute to breathe. I just need a minute to take time to walk outside for 15 minutes. Or like, I don't know. I just think that if people were kinder to ourselves, that would radiate to the world at large.
yeah, yeah. But I think, and I've been thinking about this, um, and obviously because we've been talking about this a lot, that I think folks believe, and I know that I also believe and struggle with this idea that um, my personality, my my I-ness, myself should be more firm, should be more directed, should be more alpha, should be more crystallized, right? And the thing I'm slowly learning is that I'm emotionally complex. I'm emotionally mushy. There are different facets to me, and so to assume that there is a solid version of me. And don't get me wrong, like I am stable, like mentally, emotionally, and I'm healthy, and I'm mobile, and so there are things that I'm value wise that I accept, and then things belief wise that I don't accept, and so there is that space, but I also feel this needing to let go that there has to be a one version of myself that's again perfect, that's um accurate, that it's always going to say the right thing at the right time, or like that is part of me. But there's also the awkward part of me. There's the part of me that sometimes like is like calling Juno, I'm having relationship issues and I can't deal with my emotions, what do I do, Juno?
And I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, but that's also the other thing. Like, perfectionism is an unrealistic expectation.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, let's start there. And
yeah,
and perfectionism comes from some form of like comparison because you're comparing yourself to, even if it's not if it's not somebody else, it might be your idealized, perfected version of yourself that you're comparing yourself to.
yeah,
And comparison is the thief of joy. It can be a great motivating and like it can be great for motivating and inspiring and stuff like that. But when you start saying, "Oh, it's 1:30, gratitude." Do you want to
yeah.
do gratitude really quickly
Yeah,
while we're
yeah,
live?
let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay, what are you grateful for, Ashen?
I am grateful for my health. I was able to go to the gym this morning, and I was able to sort of um, just move to be able to do that. And so and I think I was sick a couple of weeks ago, and I had like I think I told you I like torqued my back and I couldn't move, and that brought up a lot of vulnerability issues. And so I'm really grateful to just to be healthy.
I love that. And I affirm that, yes. Um, I am super grateful um that my professional life is in alignment with who I am as a person, and that the thing that I get to do every day is create really fun things for myself and other people to experience, and that it really feels like this is going to sound so silly, but it feels almost like I'm living in a dream sometimes because I'm like, wait, I get to have conversations with people that are really interesting and smart and funny. I get to help people and I get to hold retreats and I get to do all this fun stuff. And people just like I get paid to do this. That's wild. That is wild to me. Um, and I'm so thankful that I get to live that existence and that like the next step for me is going to be like a queer communal living facility. Like, how exciting is that? So
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
like, I'm so grateful that I get to live this existence.
Mm, I love that for you. Aw. And I feel like when I first met you, everything just felt like they were in alignment for you. Like I
Thank
was
you.
like, this witchy has her shit together.
I like to think so. I like to hope so. I work towards that.
Well, when I first met you, that's what I got.
I think the first time you met me though, like I had like microphones with me because I was giving a talk or something, right? I was like fully and because I think I had also my like my ring light and you were like, "What are you filming in here?" And I was like, "No, no, it's for my class."
You sure it's not for your OnlyFans page?
I don't have one of those yet, but maybe, who knows? No judgment. I am pro sex worker.
No, no judgment. No judgment. Yes. No judgment need apply here, please.
Yeah.
I'm all about my sex workers. I feel it should be, it should be legal. That's that's,
Yeah. We should be
that's
able to give them insurance.
yes, please. Um, so as we do, Gina, as we
We're
do.
meandering.
Page
I mean,
seven.
honestly, this workbook is also a little bit more facilitating of that because it's a shorter workbook and we're
Yeah,
most of the way through it. So
yeah, yeah.
this is an episode for it.
Um, so on page 7 in the workbook, under practicing accepting when distressed, they give you an example of mindfulness of distress script. And so they ask folks to recognize and allow the emotions, and they give examples such as, I'm feeling angry, sad, scared. It is okay. I can allow myself to have these feelings. I can make space for it. I don't have to be afraid, or I don't have to be afraid of it or try to get rid of it. And then they ask you to watch the emotions. I can just watch this feeling and see what it does. I don't have to get caught up with I don't have to get caught up in it. And that's big for me, not getting caught up in the emotion, not investing so much into the emotions because I think either because I want to be right and so I find myself like stapled to that particular belief or expectation because usually it's an expectation that I feel that somebody has disappointed me and so I need to adjust that and so letting that go I think is really important. Um,
I think something that we can learn from this script or this format is also the fact that we are not our emotions.
yes,
Like, our emotions are something that is moving through us and happening for us, but it's something that is a temporary state. So, though it might feel super intense in the moment and like dialed up to 11, ultimately that's not who you are. That's just something that's happening in your field of being.
right.
So I think once we also separate ourselves and say like, oh, I'm not that. Like it might be happening right now and
Mm,
it's valid and I'm feeling it and processing it. That doesn't mean that that is all I am.
right,
So that also that thought process can help surrender around it.
right, right. Um, they talk about being present. I will turn my attention back to the task I'm doing. I think we talked about a little bit about the mundaneness of just putting your intention here. Or I will turn my attention towards my breath. Again, I think breath work, and Juno has talked about that. I can't say more about one. Join Juno's breath work because that's
It's
really
free
good.
and it's twice a month.
But there's something about engaging your breathing that is very affirming, and Juno mentioned this really beautiful description, and I'm not going to do this justice, Juno, but you pick it up where I'm sort of bumbling it up, where Juno makes a reference about like how our breath or air is like a
Oh.
substance that we're not aware of, and then when we do breath work, anyway, I'm gonna let Juno explain their theory compared to me trying to explain Juno's theory.
So that comes out of the idea that like, do fish know they're in water? Probably not. So I think that we are in air. So to me, air is just a substrate that connects everything in on this planet. So when you are consciously participating with breath and with your breathing, you are then becoming aware of your connectedness to everything else on this planet.
Yeah,
And I think that when you feel that kind of sense of oneness or just like this profound stillness or like however you want to explain that experience, it kind of you realize that nothing's that big of a deal. I mean, I'm not trying to invalidate anyone's feelings or
right,
experiences when I say that,
right, right.
but you kind of see the scope of what you actually are. You kind of can
Yeah,
see
yeah,
just I don't know, it really leads to a form of surrender for me,
yeah.
where I'm just like, oh, it's okay. Everything's okay.
Yeah, and for me when you describe that, it gives me a flavor of kindness. Like how am I being kind with myself and my body in this moment? Because I am not alone. Because sometimes when you are going through it, you do feel alone. You do feel isolated, and and that breath work sort of just helps you remember that you're not alone in that process. And I think that's an act of kindness.
Yeah. And if you guys are interested I usually do like a little talk at the beginning with some inspirational words. And then I do the actual breath work, which is like a 20-minute breathing technique. And then at the end, I do a talking meditation.
Yeah,
And if you do want to come, go to thehouseofh.org. And house is HAUS. And there's a button right up top that says free breath work. And you could just click it. And we do it for the new moon and the full moon. And I also talk a little bit about astrology when they happen, when the breath
yeah.
works happen.
And I'll have the link for folks down below because I think I've been adding the link down there. Um,
Yay.
yeah. And the last part of this is within the mindfulness of distress script is dealing with the emotional comeback. Um, and I think as Juno was pointing, right, like you're not your emotions. I feel the emotions returning. It's okay that it's okay that what I'm that's okay that what emotions do they I can't read Juno.
Mercury retrograde. I feel the emotions returning. That's okay. That's what emotions do. They like to rear their head again. I will just go back to watching it again. It is just another ocean wave.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. We
Uh,
jump in, we help each other. That's what we do. Yeah.
and then for me, I don't know about you, but I feel for me that that's the important key to remember. Like, regardless of what you're practicing, regardless of what you're engaging in for your attention to be in the moment, and being aware of the mundane, that you are going to have moments that are going to throw you off. You are going to have moments that you're not going to remember any of these skills. You're going to have moments of being selfish. You're going to have moments of just being lonely. Like, whatever it is, just know it's a process, right?
Yeah. We are always in process. I like to say an expression that I use a lot is that's not my journey.
Yeah.
So like if I'm if someone invites me to do something and I don't want to do it, I'm like, that's not my journey. And then it just because I'm always on path and we're always moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I think about an emotion that I don't want to experience or something that like I know consciously, I'm like, this isn't serving me, and I don't actually feel this way, I can sometimes go to myself, that's not my journey.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's all I need also.
And I think similar in the recovery world, that phrase is like stay in your lane, right? Like only deal with what you need to be dealing with in your particular lane. You don't need to know what other people are doing in their lane. You don't need to sort of, dictate or, chitter chatter about other people's lanes. Just stay in your lane.
Hmm.
Which I think is important because it reminds us that I don't have to take on other people's problems, because if I do, that might be a way of me distracting from my own particular issues, my own particular problems. And that leads into the escape methods that I think we've talked about, like either
Yeah,
substances or cutting or self-harming behaviors. That and Yeah.
we love it.
The work, right? So
Yeah.
the work is practicing, practice, and then being patient, and then being persistent with it. Because it's not instant gratification work. It's gradual.
That is very, very true. It's not going to just snap on and you're going to be like, ah, I feel so much better. Because in order to get to the place where you're feeling great all the time, and no one's feeling great all the time, but like feeling great most of the time, you have to process the deep, deep things that you're like, I had that locked away, or I didn't even know I was feeling that anymore. Like that type of stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's what happened to me last night during the breath work, where
Oh,
I
yes,
was
that's
I
right.
was I was like I thought I had this on lockdown. I thought I had to process this, and no. When you I forget which sequence it was, either the letting go part, or maybe I think it was the exhale. And then I had like this quick little thought about an image. And I was like, oh, I remember that. And then I think I was kept on breathing, and that image and that scenario kept on coming up for me. I was like, oh man. And feelings were coming up with those images. I was like, oh man. And so I just had to be in the breath. I just really had to be in the breath.
Well, that's why I say when we do it, that I say like when you do the ohm, like really let it out. Be as
Yeah.
loud as you can because
Yeah.
again, it stimulates the vagus nerve and it helps move those things out of the body.
Yeah.
So I'm I'm all for like scream therapy or like laugh therapy or any of that. Like if it is a somatic technique that like moves through the body, I'm all for it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was good. Because I I sat with it, and I realized, like, um yeah, it's not my work. I I believe it's my work, but it's not my work. I my need for controlling my Capricorn aspect of myself.
Oh,
Um,
you're a Capricorn?
um,
Oh.
what was that face about?
No, it gives me more perspective on you, that's all.
It was like, oh.
Capricorns are like really hard workers. They they're an earth sign
Yeah,
and they're ruled by Saturn, so you learn lessons really well when things don't come to you right away. So like when you get a no, um that's that to you frequently reads as more of a not right now. And how can I get to it anyway? And I think that's well, I know that's a very Capricorn trait.
it's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. Okay, not right now. Okay, I'll
Witchy.
come back. I'll come back to you in what, an hour?
Yeah. Or you're like, okay, I'll rethink it, but we're gonna make it happen. Like it's very that. Very of this world.
That's more my forte. Let's rethink this. I hear you. So let's think outside of the box.
Yeah. You're like, I feel so exposed right now.
Just a little. Um, and then that's it for module two. We got through it.
Yeah. I told you
Yeah,
that's why it was okay for us to kind of like meander because we covered a lot of this.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so as we're getting ready to end, in looking at the mindfulness script, Juno sort of gave a mental exercise for folks to do. working on sort of a daily diary. So, time, day, and experience. And then uh, the emotional comeback, right? The emotions will come back, and it's just being able to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Anything you wanna add before we say goodbye to our folks?
Yes, be compassionate towards yourself and know that whatever's happening in your life right now, even if it's super dark and bleak, it's gonna pass.
Mm,
And that sometimes the things that we think are the hardest things to deal with can be our greatest teachers. And if you're feeling super overwhelmed by like, I don't know, political decisions or our current administration, know that we just, your higher self helped you choose to be here to incarnate, to develop. So it's all going to be okay. And I love you.
yeah. Um, I last night you shared about the contract of why we come to Earth, and
Oh, you mean the thing with like your birth chart?
your birth chart, and how and it sort of reminded me, like, or made it easier for me to sort of sit with what came up for me, like, okay, so if I did choose this in sort of a divine realm before I came down to this earthly realm, it's part of the experience. It's not necessarily saying that it's bad. It's not saying that I wanted to experience because either it had a lesson, or wanted to help me perceive things differently. And so I really like that, the idea that on a divinity level, right? Like, we are making choices to experience, or sometimes making choices to be willful, because that's a thing too.
Yeah. And it's all valid because it's all part of the human condition.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I also think that, and I think I've said this before on here, but like I think we're all doing the absolute best with what we are equipped with. And that even includes people who maybe I don't agree with their worldviews or stuff like that, whatever. But I think that we are all doing our best.
yeah,
And I think that it's important that we do our best to offer everyone, even those we disagree with, compassion.
yeah, yeah,
Because you're then showing compassion for yourself.
yeah,
Because if we are all one, which I truly believe we are, I think we're a big amorphous organism experiencing itself. Um, then if you can see yourself in another person, you can feel compassion for that other person.
yeah. I have to say, when you mentioned that last night, I was like, "Ooh, uh, not everybody. Do you mean everybody?" Nah.
I mean everybody. I mean absolutely everybody. Even the people that I fundamentally disagree with. Like for example, our current administration. I do not love them. I think they're not great people. And I recognize that there are parts of me still that even though I'm a coach and I work in wellness and help people discover parts of themselves that and like I'm really happy with who I am as a person, there are parts of me that are not super enlightened. There are parts of me that are not the greatest. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
so like who's to say that that's just not an amplified version of the parts of me that I don't like.
yeah,
And if you think about the collection of how many people are actually on this planet, if like all those energies are going to one or two places or three places or whatever, why wouldn't they seem like these big bag, like crazy people? You know,
yeah, yeah.
like that makes perfect sense to me. And I also think that like everything is love.
Hmm.
So I think that you don't know what you are until you know what you're not. It's like that expression, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Hmm.
So I think that things that are generally perceived as evil or bad or like just not the vibe,
Yeah,
that's just like love testing the boundaries of itself. And like, what does that actually mean? Like, so I tend to zoom out kind of on life because it helps me deal with the day to day. So if I look at things more archetypally, like or archetypally, however you want to say that word, you can find books on that from like Carl Jung. Great. Also, Carolyn Way Mace talks about archetypes and stuff like that. Great. Those types of lessons And also if you study tarot, you're going to learn archetypes. So like um being able to zoom out on reality is such a powerful technique
Yeah,
because you can then you're not looking at the feeling, you're not feeling the feeling, you're looking for the lesson.
yeah,
And I think I look at everything as a lesson.
yeah. And something that you've said, or something that maybe I've heard, but I feel like I've heard you say this, where and I believe this, and I believe in the sense that people are reflections of ourselves, like different aspects
Yeah.
of ourselves. And sometimes you're going to see something in the mirror that you don't like, and sometimes you're going to see something in the mirror that that you're jealous of, or whatever have you. But being able to acknowledge that there are aspects of ourselves that we are drawn to by other people, or other people are drawn to by us, whatever that looks like, from sort of cult like stuff to the church, which is another cult, right? So it's
It's a
like
death cult, as you said. Those are
uh,
your words.
those are my words. I it is a death cult, right? Like, anyway, but the the idea.
I literally was almost like, blah.
But the idea that we sort of sit alone is partly true, but where we're sitting sometimes is being reflected back to us in various aspects, right?
Yeah.
Because
And
because
that's like,
because I know, like, when I'm with people, like when I'm with you, when I'm with people who are like motivated, who are energetic, who tend to have a more optimistic view of life, that energizes me. That gets me to, like, to really want to invest in community, to really want me to invest in like myself. And so I truly believe the people you hang out with, they do reflect. And like, it is a silo, or to a certain degree, where if you're only dealing with this kind of people, then that's what you're gonna that energy is what you're gonna produce. That train of thought, or that philosophy is what's gonna come up.
I think also that there's that colloquial expression, right? Like birds of a feather flock together.
Yeah,
And that's a very watered down version of saying the same thing. But like my grandmother used to say, stereotypes exist for a reason, or like colloquialisms exist for a reason, that type of thing. So I think sometimes we say these things, these like almost spells that we cast on ourselves that reinforce sometimes good thought patterns and sometimes bad thought patterns. And that's a whole nother, like the way we talk to ourselves is
yeah,
so powerful. And I don't know if that's
yeah.
coming up in one of the later modules, but like if not,
Yes.
we should explore that.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it is coming up, because the next module is module 3, improving distress, and I believe it's in that one. I could be wrong, or module 4, because module four is the last one.
Okay. Yeah, I'm very excited to continue exploring this.
Yeah. As we do, Juno. I love it, because like you said, it all connects. And I think at the end of the day, I think, Juno and I are both on the same page in this idea about, like, the work is kindness and the work is compassion, but it's uncomfortable. There's no way around it. But you don't have to do it alone. At least that's what I'm hearing, Juno. What are you hearing?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, in my opinion, it's my personal BS, my personal belief system. We're never really alone. I think that like the concept of I is definitely a thing, but it is my belief that if we are all one, and I truly believe that we are, even down to the screens, the lights, the everything, that we're just, we're never alone and we're always in community. And it's a matter of like, I guess, like kind of acknowledging that and settling into the fact that, like, okay, it's all gonna be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And with that, folks, we're going to end. And thank you so much for joining us. And if you haven't done it, please hit a thumbs up if you like it, and subscribe. And we'll see you
Yeah.
next time.
Bye.
Bye.